All right, so in this section we're going to be talking about the starter shingle and the importance of the starter shingle. The starter shingle is placed along the edge of the roof, anywhere that shingles overhang the outside of the roof. And so down here on the eaves and also on the gable ends. And the starter shingles serve a few very important purposes. They're the first shingle laid down on the roof, and as such, they serve to help start your layout where all the rest of the shingles are going to. The starter shingle helps glue the first shingle, prevent blow off in the event of the storm. So you've got nails that are holding the shingle down too, but the glue on the starter shingle is going to help hold that very lowest edge down really well. So lastly, the starter shingle is going to prevent water from running between the butt joints of the first row of shingles and getting behind your soffit and fascia. Before we apply the underlayments, we're going to start by applying this piece of trim that's known as a drip edge. It's also called eave drip. And this is a piece of metal flashing that's applied around the edges of the roof. So both at the bottom, on the eaves, and also on the gable ends. There are a variety of styles of drip edge that in different shapes that it comes in. The most common style is this aluminum variety that I have here in my hand. It's got this little lip that you can see that kind of juts out over the edge of the roof. This lip allows you to hang the edge of the shingles over the edge a little bit farther, as it's got some more support here, and so you can go a little bit further. The drip edge also works to protect the edge of the roof. I see a lot of rot around the edges of the roof, especially in the gutter area, and using a piece of drip edge like this can help protect this vulnerable area of your fascia and soffit. Especially at the gutter, the drip edge serves as a good piece of backup protection to ensure that any water that's coming down the roof ends up in the gutter and does not flow behind the gutter and into the fascia. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. Please hit subscribe so you can be a part of my channel. You can watch all my videos that cover complete stages of both shingle and metal roofing. There's tons more content coming out soon about all aspects of roofing, including skylights and trim and sheds and whatever you're interested in. So while you don't always have to use this piece of trim, code typically requires it, and I strongly recommend it. You're going to pay somewhere around 50 cents per linear foot for this trim, and in my opinion, it's worth every penny if it helps you out down the road. So when installing the drip edge, you want to install it first if you're using an regular underlayment like felt at the roof edge. It should go down underneath the felt so that any water coming down the roof will run over it and into the gutter. So we're going to bring the underlayment down on top of this next. On the outside gable edges, we're going to install it later after the felt's on. So we want the drip edge to go on top of the felt on the vertical gable ends going up like this. So, and if you're using ice and water shield underlayment at the roof edge and are worried about potential ice dams, a good tip to use is to install the drip edge on top of the ice and water shield membrane. Now this is going to allow you to run the ice shield down over the edge of the roof and on top of the fascia and behind the gutter. And that's going to prevent water and ice from getting in right down here at the edge of the roof. Remember, the ice and water membrane seals around all nails that it goes through it. So putting this drip edge down on top of it is okay, because these nails that are going through it are going to be sealed by the ice and water shield. So one thing to look out for with your drip edge is how your fascia and any potential trim intersect with the roof. In most cases, this small type of trim is going to work fine. Sometimes though, the roof decking and fascia may not meet so closely together, and you're going to need a larger piece of trim than this to make sure that the trim can reach from the roof down all the way into the gutter or well over to the fascia. And it'll need to be longer on the back side potentially so that you can nail it into to the roof decking securely. It's hard to generalize about this. You're going to need to look at your roof. So when you're ordering your materials, you might want to pay close attention to this detail and lift up the shingles at the edge and see if there's a gap in there or anything like that, just to make sure that the trim will work as I've shown you here. So if this smaller type of trim is not going to work, you need to get a different type of edge metal that will work. And I'd recommend just talking to the people at the roofing supply house, as they'll be able to get you a larger style of trim that'll work with any gaps or any details that are a little funky with your roof. One thing you should also pay close attention to is look at the edge of the gable for any molding that may affect the trim. Now on this, our roof model here, we just got a simple 1x4 fascia. It's a straight edge here. It's not going to cause a problem when the drip edge goes on here. But a lot of houses, I think especially like older houses, have an elaborate crown molding that are going to cause the drip edge to not seat well or have to sit really far out from the edge of the roof. Might cause the edge of the drip edge to kind of like hang out into space a little bit. And that's just going to look a little funny. So you want to look out for these fancy decorative moldings, and the drip edge may also cover up some of that. It might be an important part of your house, so that's not going to look good. These situations won't necessarily affect the effectiveness of your trims, but it may just look bad. So you should at least make sure that the drip edge is the same color as the molding. And if needed, you can paint the metal to make it blend in better later, so you can paint it the same color as the trim. Sometimes in those situations where there's a big piece of crown on a really old house or gable molding, we're going to elect to just leave the drip edge off the gable end if it's going to look bad or cover up something that's important to the house. So the drip edge, less important on the gable ends, much more important down here where it's going to help protect, because all the water is running down here. It's going to help protect your fascia. So when you're installing your drip edge, it just nails on real simply. You can use the same nails that you use for the rest of the roof. And we like to nail it every 8 to 10 inches. Just make sure that it's on here real securely. All right, so there are 2 types of shingles that you can use as a starter. One, obviously, is this sort of shingle, which is made specifically to be a starter. Different manufacturers have different varieties, but they all look something like this. This particular brand comes in a pack with these 2 strips that are serrated there in the middle, and then you break them apart like this. And so this is actually 2 separate starter shingles. There's obviously a little bit smaller than the 3-tab shingle. We'll cover that in a second. But what you'll realize is that when we put this down, it's got a glue strip that's located at the bottom. So the glue strip goes at the bottom when you're putting that on. And that's a super important feature, as it, again, glues the bottom of the first row of shingles to the starter and helps secures that shingle to the roof. So your other option for a starter is to use just a regular 3-tab shingle like this for your starter. And this is more common and it's convenient, especially if you're using 3-tab shingles on the rest of the roof. You're already going to have some of these. You can just use these for 2 purposes. They're a little bit cheaper than the regular starter shingles, but realistically not that much. Traditionally, people have just used the 3-tab like this, sort of upside down, with the back of the shingle down at the edge. But I want you to remember something, because shingles are held to the roof both by the nails, as I said, and also the glue strip that holds down the lower edge of the shingle. So the problem with using this technique with a 3-tab is that with the full 3-tab like this is that the glue strip then ends up in the middle of the shingle up here, and it's going to fail to glue down the lower edge of your first course of shingles, leaving them vulnerable to lifting up in a high wind. So I'm going to give you a little pro tip here. If you want to use a 3-tab shingle as your starter, it's no problem. What you want to do is cut the tabs off like this, and this is going to leave you with a smaller shingle strip that resembles the starter strip that I showed you earlier, and it's also going to allow you to have the glue strip at the bottom edge so that it will glue down that edge of the first course. So before installing the starter shingle, you're going to need to lay out your lines on the roof to guide the installation of the starter shingle. Realistically, when you're doing your roof, you're going to probably want to go ahead and chalk your lines for both the starter shingle and the field shingles at the same time. To keep it simple for the video, however, I'm going to just focus on layout of the starter shingle here. We've got our drip edge installed first, and that's important to get that done before you lay out your lines, because that's going to affect your layout, because we're going to use this lower edge of the drip edge to pull our lines off. Shingle manufacturers recommend letting the shingles hang over the edge of the roof 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. That might seem a bit small to you when you look at it, but it's important not to run the shingles over the edge too far, as they're obviously going to be more prone to getting caught by the wind, and also over time they're going to sag and they're going to crack. So you can hang it over more to begin with and it'll look good, but over time the soft shingles are going bend down and crack. So you can realistically go up to 1 inch overhang, and we do that all the time. It works out fine. So one of the reasons this type of drip edge is good is that the little lip on it helps you get started over the edge of the decking by about 1 inch already. So your roof's already going that far, and then we can overhang the starter shingle a little bit further over that. So if you're using something like this, you can go ahead and set your starter to hang over half an inch to 1 inch, and then you're already going to be 1 3/4 inches or so past the edge of the fascia, which is a good overhang to get the water off, especially if you don't have a gutter. So to lay out the lines for your starter, you're going to need to know how far of an overhang you want and how wide your starter shingle is. So remember that your field shingle is a different dimension than your starter. So focus on the width of the starter that you're using and not the size of the field shingle. So in this case, the designated starter shingles that we're using are 7 3/4 inches wide. And we're just going to keep it simple and use that 3/4 of an inch as your overhang. So that'll keep it simple. So what we're going to do is start laying out the lines here. I'm going to make a mark here that's 7 inches from the edge of the roof. That's going to allow that extra 3/4 to hang over. So if you're unsure of the math and you're just new at this, just make some marks to start with and lay a shingle on there and measure to see if your overhang's correct. So just take your time figuring this out, because as I said, this is going to determine how all the rest of the shingles are laid. So once you're sure of where your marks need to be and how much you're going to overhang, go ahead and make another mark further down the roof at the other end of the roof. And you should probably go ahead and make a mark every 20 feet or so. Obviously this model is pretty small, but most chalk lines that you're going to use aren't going to be A, that long, or B, that accurate if you're pulling more than 20 feet. So go every 20 feet or so, make a mark so that you can at least double check your chalk lines there. Once you've got your marks laid out, go ahead and snap your line. Again, I like to use the red chine for this, the red chalk for this application, because it's the most visible. All right, so once you've got your lines marked out, it's time to install the starter. Now, before you nail the first one on, you're going to want to cut 6 inches or so off that first starter shingle so that it will be shorter than the first shingle you lay down. Now, if you don't make either the starter shingle or the field shingle shorter, you're going to end up with the butt joints of the first field shingle in the same place over the shingle. So I'm going to show you like this. Now, if you use a designated starter shingle, it might be a little different length, so you might want to eyeball this first. You really only have to worry about this on the first starter shingle, because you can use full length pieces on the next ones and it'll work out. So as you can see, I've already gone and installed this first starter shingle, and I cut some of it off so that it's not as long as this 3-tab shingle that we're going to lay on top of it. So you can see here that the butt joint for the end of this starter shingle is going to be right in the middle of this tab. Okay, so that's important. So if I had left the full length on of the starter on, for example, the butt joints for this 3-tab and for the starter shingle are going to be relatively in the same place, which would allow water to go down this crack and leak between the butt joint of the starter and get behind your fascia. So that's a common mistake that I see. So again, you can just eyeball it. You don't have to use a formula or whatever, and make sure that the starter shingle, the first one, is shorter. Of course, you could put a full-length starter shingle and then cut the first full shingle. After you've shortened up your shingle, got it shorter than this one, you got it laying in place, making sure you've got the correct reveal on the outside of the roof over here, because this is going to go 3/4 over here. You want to use 4 to 5 nails per shingle. You want to place them a couple inches up from the edge of the roof. And if you're using 3-tab shingles, architects don't have the break in them, so you don't have to worry about that. But you want to make sure the nails are spaced so that they're not like right under this, this break in the shingle. So what I've done here to help me lay it out is just lay a 3-tab up here that's going to go over top, and that way I know the nails are landing relatively in the middle of the tab and not too close to the edge of the tab. All right, so you can see on our model here, we got everything ready to go for our shingle installation. We got the ice and water shield on, we got the rest of our underlayment on, and we got the starter shingle applied everywhere. At the gable ends, on the eaves, and we've got it here on the dormer. So all that's ready to go, and we're ready to move on to the real exciting part where we're going to get to start putting shingles on. If you'd like the complete series for yourself on how to do shingle or metal roofing, you can go to my website, RoofingIntelligence.com, and there you can get a membership to either stream or you can get a DVD in the mail that'll show you how to do all the steps for either of those types of roofing. Enjoy this video. Thanks so much for watching.